What is going on today, guys? Hope you guys are doing well. Today, I just wanted to talk about the topic of, do fuel haulers actually work too much? And this topic was brought up by a comment that I got on the last video that I did. And somebody had written a comment and said, yeah, I used to do fuel delivery. You work too much, and I think fuel haulers should be limited to 10 hours a day. Now, I don't know if he's actually a boomer or not. It sounds like that, but I kind of imagine, just in my head, that's kind of how all the people who make those type of comments are, but who knows? Anyways, just wanted to dive into that subject. Now, personally, and I've gone over this several times before, at least here at Gemini Motor Transport, I average about 57 hours a week, pretty much throughout the entire year. And, I found that to be a good sweet spot. I found that to be where I don't get too tired, but at the same time, I'm making a good amount of money. I have a coworker who comes in, does his loads, goes home, doesn't ask for any extra loads. And he only averages about 50 hours a week, and he's completely fine with that. And it is what it is. I have other coworkers who work as much and as many 6 days as they can. That's not me either. The reality is you need to find your own sweet spot. And as I've addressed in other videos, it's just about finding what balance works for you. I would argue you need to find a balance of what you can sustain for a long period of time and also make the most amount of money as possible, within reasons, within certain limitations, so that way you can actually retire at a decent age and not have to show up to work anymore anyways. Again, it doesn't really have a right or a wrong answer here. It's just all up to you. Again, like this guy was saying, he thinks 10-hour days are or should be the max. Well, there are companies out there that will only schedule you for 10-hour days. Sheets is a great example. If I recall correctly, they only schedule you for like 10 and a half, 11 hours a night at most, and then you're off. And if they think you're approaching that, they take a load off or whatever. So they specifically have a better work-life balance than probably most companies do. But also from my perspective too, as somebody who works 55, 57 hours a week, that's below the average for a lot of truck drivers. I think, certainly the OTR guys, they're not working 57 hours a week. They're not working anything below, 60 to 65, maybe, certainly even pushing their 70-hour clock on a regular basis. So it's certainly a personal preference, and you kind of need to figure out what works for you and make a plan to get to a company or a different line of trucking that will actually allow you to get to what you think is your work-life balance that you're actually after. Whether that's closer to 40 hours a week or 50 or 60, there's going to be jobs out there that you can actually achieve that goal for. You just have to put in the work, which, that's probably the hardest part for most of us, and actually research what is going to fit that the best for you. I've worked several different trucking jobs that were closer to 40 hours a week, which was, flatbedding for a local lumber company. Food delivery was closer to 40, 45 hours a week. Generally, local jobs are going to be, hours that are not going to be over 60 on a regular basis, generally speaking. But again, this kind of speaks to this person's and, people in general, their inability to make things work. Now, we don't know the context of this comment, right? He could have been at a company where he tried to not work as much, and they say, no, you're going to work 65, 70 hours a week, and you're going to run out your clock. Okay, well then at that point he tried and then he moved on. But to say that fuel hauling as a whole, you work too much, that's really not the case. At least if we're going to be really generalizing here, which we are, because we're going to talk about the general, not the exceptions. But generally speaking, you're not going to work much more than 50 to 55 hours in fuel hauling unless you want the extra loads and you ask for them. Like here specifically at Gemini, I would say I'm only scheduled for a full 12-hour night, probably 30 to 40% of the time, where I'll show up to work and I look at my loads and they're actually a full 12-hour night. It's more realistic that I'm scheduled for like 10 on a regular basis, and then I'll ask for extra loads. Or you can just go home if you don't want extra loads, and you can just run your 8 to 10 hours and walk. Most of the time, they're not going to overextend you. It's pretty rare. It's not a frequent thing that they will schedule you for a 14-hour day. Certainly, even if you have the time to do it and your slip seat is off or something like that, it's very infrequent. Usually it's a glitch in the system and they want you to go, like, to, for example, I'll show up sometimes and they'll want me to go all the way to Salt Lake to load for, you know, Denver or something crazy like that. It's like, yeah, that's not possible in a day cab. At least not as a local driver. Sleeper, it's a little different, but even when I was at Pilot, same thing. They would pretty regularly schedule me for 10 hours. And more often than not, I would either ask for extra loads or I'd volunteer to come in early for a 14-hour day. From all the other people that I've talked to across the country, most people are not, you know, working over 60 hours a week on a regular basis, unless they are, you know, pushing their clock, because they have their own truck, or they're in a sleeper position, or they're just expected to at whatever company that they're at. But getting back to the original point, if you think you're working too much, you can always approach your boss and say, hey, I'm not good with whatever, over 60 hours a week, for whatever reason. Doesn't matter the reason. And if they say, oh, well, that's too bad, then maybe you need to look for a different job for something that's actually going to fit you better. But from all the bosses that I've had across various different industries, even within trucking, if you approach them with something reasonable, most of the time they're willing to meet you halfway, or at least give you what you're asking for, because they would rather keep you than just try and hire somebody else. But that's not always the case. It could be different depending upon your industry, depending upon the company. That being said, there are solutions to the problem of working too many hours. And again, it's going to look different for different people. 57 hours a week that I average is probably too much for some people, and it's not enough for others. But with that being said, that's it for this video. If you guys have any videos or topics that you want me to do or cover in any specific videos, you can put that in the comment section down below. Or if you think I'm wrong and, you know, fuel haulers are just worked to the bone and, you know, everybody should be limited to 10-hour days, you can put that in the comment section down below as well. Otherwise, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care. God bless.